Welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast, where life, sports, and medicine intersects. We are glad that you are part of this growing community where we strive to help you strengthen your mindset, help you grow your assets, and help you achieve whatever level of success that you want for your life. Go to our website at Dr.Derrick, thesportsdoctor.com, where you can find all the latest content, and you can also follow us on our social media channels. Now, let's get into this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast. And by the time this episode is released, we will officially be in February. And in the United States, February has been deemed Black History Month. And many times when we think about Black history, we think about a few icons: Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, Jesse Jackson, Oprah Winfrey, and many other names can come to mind. But what about the unsung heroes of Black history? Black history dates back to the arrival of the first Africans in what is now the United States of America in 1619. And Black history is still being made today. We are still, in many instances, setting records, being the first to do certain things, being the first, even physicians in our family, and the first people to serve in leadership roles in our organizations. So we are still Black history in the making. So as I mentioned, February, the month of February, is a month where we focus on some of the people who really made an impact in our country. But I feel that Black history is American history, and Black history is not something to just be celebrated in February, but throughout the year. So as I record this, is with a heavy heart. Just losing the matriarch of our family, Delia Burgess, affectionately known as Big Mama. And if you've been around this podcast for any time, you've heard me make reference to Big Mama and Big Daddy. As a matter of fact, one of the first episodes was with Big Daddy, Reverend Charlie Burgess. And many times when you have a woman who is married to someone who is an outgoing person, in this instance, a pastor, a speaker, a philanthropist, many times the woman does not get as much attention as she deserves. And that definitely is true when it comes to Big Mama. Always someone who was peaceful, maybe a woman of few words, but when she spoke, or especially when she sang, it got your attention. Over the last few years, really, watching her overcome so much has been an inspiration to me. Watching her inner strength, her peaceful nature, always willing to uplift someone else around her, no matter what she had going on in her personal life. So what I would like to do today is pay tribute to her life by going through some of the lessons that I learned, and probably lessons that many people learned in the community, and anybody that came into contact will more than likely have the same things to say. I was very fortunate to have grandparents in my life for my whole life. Big Mama was a few weeks shy of her 95th birthday. And when Big Daddy died, he was 95 years old as well. How amazing is that, to have two grandparents to live to be 95 years old? And even more fortunate to have all of their children still alive. So a family that has been blessed for so long, losing two parents back to back is a big blow. But we know that without a shadow of a doubt, the way that they lived their lives, the way that they gave to others, the way that they served God, and the way that they were allowing Him to use them as living vessels to do His work, we know without a shadow of a doubt that they live in destiny with Him. So although this is a time of sorrow, although this is a time where people have to cope with the many different emotions, we can rest well knowing that the lives were well lived. So I would like to leave you with a few of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So I would say the first lesson: anyone who came into contact with Big Mama knew that she put God first. And in the hierarchy, it was God and family, and then everything else. Anytime you were around her, she would share her faith with you, especially if you were going through a hard time. She would say things like, do what you can and let God handle the rest. Do what you can and let God handle the rest. I love the way that she would inspire not only me, but also my children. While we were home for Christmas, I took the opportunity to just get away and sit and be quiet and listen. And I had the privilege of just sitting with her for about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, and just listening to her talk and asking questions, probing questions. And then my children came around for about the last 10 to 15 minutes. And she shared with them that, they have the ability to do whatever they want to do. Just always keep God first, always be respectful to their parents, always let the light of God shine through them, and he would handle the rest. She would often say, never give up on God because he will never give up on you. Some people have to try to speak or demonstrate their faith, but definitely she lived it out day by day. The second lesson that I would say that was imparted on me from my grandparents and has been passed down not only from my grandparents, but through my parents. And the way that I try to live now is by giving. I often think about the fact that both of my grandparents started off their lives as sharecroppers. But by the time I was living, it always was impressive to me that they had the biggest house that I'd seen as a child. I mean, we're talking 3 stories, probably 7 or 8 bedrooms, 4 or 5 bathrooms. But how did they do that? They did it by hard work, number one. They did it by being good stewards of their money. But I really feel like they were so blessed because they were givers. Every holiday, not even a holiday, just anytime that you go to their house, their phone will ring with people calling, making requests. Hey, I have this bill that needs to be paid. I have a child that needs help. They always knew that they could come to Big Mama and Big Daddy during a time of need. He would always give out turkeys during the Thanksgiving and Christmas season, always working to raise money for scholarships. And on top of that, working in the community through many different organizations to better mankind and their fellow man, whether it be the Dr. Martin Luther King Scholarship Foundation or through the many different organizations through the church. They were always busy giving back. So I do feel that one of those main principles that people often miss is the importance of giving back and the importance of using your God-given talents and abilities. It doesn't always have to be money, but using whatever you've been blessed with to try to help other people. The other thing that I learned, which was not necessarily a spoken lesson, but the lesson of resiliency. I learned this by watching her endure. I really learned this in the last few years by watching her endure through medical illnesses, watching her endure the loss of her husband, long-term husband, but still just showing the utmost faith and still always trying to uplift other people, whether it be her children or her grandchildren, still living the word out, still walking by faith each and every day. And she would often tell me, baby, I've lived a good life. If I were to go today, I would be fine. But I'm going to do everything I can with every day that God has given me until he calls me home. She would often tell me about how proud she was of me, the fact that I'm a doctor, the fact that I'm a husband, a father, is something that I didn't really pay attention as much early in life. But when she would tell it to me in these last few days and years, it really hit home. And she would tell me how it made her proud, the fact that I was carrying on Big Daddy's dream, carrying on and doing things that they could not do because they did not have the opportunity to. It never got old for me to sit and listen to them tell their stories. And I'm actually glad that I had the insight to interview both of my grandparents. I spent almost all day today searching because I knew that I had the interview, but I could not find it. So I want to share a small excerpt from a talk that I had with Big Mama in 2013, actually September 1st, 2013. I sat down with both of my grandparents to try to capture the family history on tape. Because many times with Black history, we don't have as much written history, but the role of verbal history has been huge in our family. If you think about it, many times people didn't have formal education, so writing was not even widespread in many instances. So history was passed down by word of mouth. And thank God that I had family who cared about the history and who had a sound mind to still pass along that history to us. So I'd like to share an excerpt from this video where she talks about her family being a sharecropper as a child, being one of 10 children, and how year after year after year, they would work hard but never make enough money to be set free. And finally, her mother had the audacity to want to change the lives of her family. So just listen in to this as she tells in detail about how her family planned their escape and executed their escape so that my family and many of you can have the freedoms that we have today. So when we think about Black history, it's not just the people who come to mind first. It's not just the people who are written about in books. There are many unsung heroes, some that you know and some that you may not know. And Delia Burgess is one of those people. So today is September 1st, 2013. Derrick Burgess, we're talking to Big Mama, Delia Burgess, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her early childhood and also some of her other life experiences.
I was born in Kemps County, Alabama.
Bad, go to me close.
And Louvenia was my mother, Louvenia Little, and William Little, my father. And to that union, it was 10 children, 5 girls and 5 boys. And when we were quite young, we lived on different people's plantation. We moved a lot, and that affected our school going because we'd get to maybe attend school one year at one place, and then next year we'd move and go into another school. And most of the time when we were attending school, we were attending schools at churches. We used to attend school in church. I remember we lived on one of the brothers' place. He was a dog. And we stayed on his place 1 year. And they would, if you stayed on one brother's place, and then you had to move off that brother's place, you'd move maybe even on the other brother's place. So we moved from, I believe his name was Frank Dow, and we moved to Clarence Dow place. And I was about, I guess, 7 or 8. And when we moved down on this plantation, and we went to school in Mississippi for a while because we lived on the Mississippi state line. And then sometime we went in Alabama because, but each time we would attend churches, go to church school, we attend school in church. And so we stayed on Mr. Clansdale place. He was real mean. And he would, my dad, they would be in the field plowing, and the other men's, they'd be plowing. And when they look up and see the boss man coming, they have the mules running. They be plowing so fast. And because when you get to the end, you had to turn right around. You couldn't even rest. You had to turn right around and go back. And I remember when we would get hoeing cotton, I was so small that we had to get on the road. Me and my oldest sister carried the road together. But we were still in the field. And Mama would have to help us up when we got behind her. And we had a lady by the name of Miss Ella. She was the leader of the, like we had you always had a leader when you was hoeing cotton, one that could chop real fast and make everybody else chop real fast. So that's what Miss Ella, she was the leader. That old lady could chop cotton. and she would right to the end, and she would beat everybody else out to the end of the row, and she would get a chance to blow a little bit. But the rest of us be so far behind her, when we get to the end, she ready to turn around and go back. So we would never get to rest because we were trying to keep up with her. We had to try to keep up with her. She couldn't, they call it get a row on you. You know, some people chop so fast, they get a row on you. And everybody's supposed to chop the same number of rows. So we couldn't go to school until we had finished picking, scrapping cotton. And this would be just about Christmas when we get through picking all the cotton. And so Mom was determined that her children were not going to grow up like this, because my sister and I, we were the oldest, and we used to go to field. We were small, and we go to field and help my dad cut bushes. They call it clearing the new ground. Cut bushes, move stumps, roots, so they could plow the ground and make another crop. And so me and my sister would go with Dad and help him because we were the oldest. And so Mama decided by the time the boys got old enough where they could take lead and go on the field and plowing and doing, she was gonna get them out of there. And because, like I say, he was real mean, and he would wanna put his, wanna kick you, stuff like that. Especially if you said anything or act like you didn't like what he said. He wanna put his foot in. Mom said she would have to, go to the graveyard, cause she wasn't gonna stand for no white man putting his foot in her children. So we made crops, sharecropper for him. And he, every year he'd say, you gonna get out of debt, you can move if you want to, But then every year you would make your crop, work hard. And at the end of the year, when Mama said, we going to settle up to see if we can get out of debt, they go and talk with him, and bring out his little paper and give you that little pink slip. That means you didn't get out of debt. And Mom would come back and say, Mom, did we get out of debt? No, we didn't get out of debt this year. And I would hate that. I remember I was young, but I hated that sharecropper. I hated that man, the things he put. I remember my daddy never could get sick. If he'd be so sick sometimes, he wouldn't allow to be able to go to field. And Mom would say, no, William, just stay at home and till you feel better. And he'd come by, this old boss man, all summer down to Tom's on the farm would tell him, and here he come. You either move or you get up and get them mules and get in that field, or you move, you know. And he said all that, but he didn't intend for you to move. So they'd get up, drag on to the field, sick or well. And so this is the type of boss man he was. And he talked to the old men, the grown men, just like he was talking to a dog or something. It's real, very abusive. And so Mom said, well, I'm not going to let my boys grow up here. And finally, we got a man by the name of Mr. Jim. He owned some land. Everybody wasn't on Mr. Plantation, Mr. Charlie's plantation. So some of them were doing pretty good. So he was one of those. And so Daddy went to him and asked him, could he help him? And he said, yeah, I help you, I can. And he knew that he had to slip because anybody that would help you escape was in danger, With this particular year, we went on and made the crop. And Mama said, if he tells us this year that we didn't get out of debt, I'm going to get my children and get out of here. So sure enough, when selling up time come, Mama said we didn't get out of debt again. And all we be done got during the year was a little money to get a little groceries with or something like that. And cause we raised most of the foods, and so we just have to get a little grocery or some shoes or something for the kids or something. And then they would say, we'll make the whole crop. And he'd say, we ain't out of debt. But this particular year, after we didn't get out, Mama started, we had a lot of, I remember we had chicken. And that year we killed our whole. And Daddy didn't try to raise no more because he knew that we were going to try to get away. And so we started killing. I remember Mama started killing up the chicken. We'd eat chicken every day or so, trying to eat as many of the chickens up as we could. And so people was so afraid. I don't know what was wrong with them, but they would tell on one another. They had that slave mentality. And if they thought one of the other peoples on the farm was doing something, they thought the white man ought to know, they'd slip around and tell it. So Mama said, I know if they miss the chickens, they gonna start wondering what kind of the chickens. So sure enough, one of them asked Mom, y'all had a lot of chicken. What come on all you chicken? So Mom said, I mean, the fox used to come and catch people's chicken. And so Mom said, well, I think the fox must have been gotten on our chicken. And but we were eating them up. And so Mama started to hacking. We didn't have no suitcases. Just take pillowcases, tow sacks, and pack all that you're wearing clothes, just pieces that we could wash and dry and put back on, like that. Pack up as many of our clothes as could. And pack up as many of the big clothes as we could. I remember we had grass sticks. We didn't have a mattress. You would have ticks and they'd be open in the middle, and you would go pull grass, fresh grass, and fill them up. Just pack it and make a nice mattress. And so, Mama, I remember just before we got ready to leave, Mama emptied as many of the ticks. We were sleeping on pallet. She emptied as many ticks as she could and washed them, packed them. And so the night that and Mr. Jim, he would come over to the creek, and Daddy would meet him with a couple of big bags or something, and he'd put them in his truck and carry them. And this is the way they done, just kept carrying till it got down to what each of us could get a bag, and carry and have everything. And so, Mr. Jim, he would meet him down there. He had one of lay him off, whatever was truck. And so that last night, I remember it was kind of moonshine and light. And you think of let's see, how many was Jimmy was the baby, so it would have been Reed, myself, Willie, Jesse, Arthur, and Jimmy was the baby. That was 7 children. That was us and mom and dad and 7 children trying to get away. And we had about a mile to walk across a field. And then we had to cross a footlog to cross the creek. And I remember Daddy carrying, one, set him down over there and come back and get another, help us to help all of us get across this log. Because this foot log was way up off of the water. And just a foot log, we could have so easily slipped the other end. Daddy, Mama was on the other side. And I remember her just over there praying, Lord, just hold him, just hold him. And Daddy got every one of us across. And then we all piled in Mr. Jim's truck. And he took us to his house. And when we got to his house that night, he put all us in a room and kind of on the back of the house, because in case somebody come, they wouldn't know that anybody was there. So we were all in this one room. And I remember Jimmy was the baby, and he was big size baby. Mama had weaned him, and but he would try to fret. And I remember Mama started back to letting him nurse to keep him quiet. And I remember somebody came there that day, and it was raining, and he just talked to him at the door. He didn't invite him in. And we were so scared because we didn't know who it was. And so that night, the good Lord let us like the rain, and all of us piled in that truck with all our bags, and we took off. And he carried us to York, Alabama. No, not York, Boyd. Boyd. That was the little city. Kind of like, it was some kind of like Leading in Town Creek, little town Creek. That's where we would go and buy groceries or buy whatever you needed. You would we'd walk 2 or 3 miles or whatever to this little city. So that's why he carried us to catch the train. And we caught the train. It was kind of raining then, but he had gotten us to the station. And so we all piled on the train. And I was so scared that that they were going to find out that our house was empty, that we had left, and that they were going to come after us, because we had heard that they would go overtake people, and make them come back, beat them up. And I was so scared he was going to find out, because we were going a whole day by it being raining. We couldn't get up and go to the station that morning because it was raining. And so by us having to wait till night, I'm thinking somebody going to find out that we gone and come after us, But God was with us, and we caught that train and we come to Florence, Alabama. And our auntie met us and carried us to her house. And that's how we got from Mississippi, Boyd, Alabama, to Florence, Alabama. And we never did go back there anymore. After I never did even want to go back there anymore until I was grown, married, and I thought, well, I would like to just see what it looks like, the place, but I never did go all the way back down there to that place. So that's how we got out of Mississippi. Well, it was Alabama, but it was on the line of Mississippi. And that's how we got out of Boyd, Alabama. So the good Lord brought us through a lot, but we came through it. God brought us through it. So to me, that was as close to slavery as you possibly could get.
We're talking about approximately 70 years after slaves have been freed.
Oh, yeah. 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 So, and in some of the black areas, now they are not completely free. Some of the people still doesn't vote. I read in one of the Jets where years after we supposed to had gotten free, that a lot of the people in black belt counties didn't even realize that some of us was, had civil rights or free. So it just depends on your location, where you live in, that people were still somewhat under slavery. Because a lot of those black belts, the counties, during the time when we used to go all over the place fighting for civil rights, they was still bad conditions. I still going to outhouses and stuff like that. It wasn't pretty like we was in North Alabama.
Anytime I hear that amazing story, I always think about how can I even have an excuse? If my grandparents have come this far from starting off with so little, how could I complain about some of the things that I don't have? How can I complain when my world is not exactly how I want it? This is why I work so hard. This is why I try to help so many people. And this is why I will continue to carry on the torch for both Charlie and Delia Burgess. I love you. Your light will continue to shine through me. I appreciate all the life lessons that you've given me, and I'll continue to pass those along to my children and to everyone that I meet.
Like your dad, or you can be a dentist like your mama, or you could be whatever you make up your mind to do. If you trust God, He'll help you to be what you want. Yes, ma'am. Children can be what they want to. Mm-hmm. This time, this generation can. It's a big difference for them. Yeah, every generation does a little better than the last. Be an example for them. Mm-hmm. And tell them how the Lord love them and what He wants you to be good, kind. It'll go a long way.